Argentina's Vice President Cristina Fernandez said she is victim of lawfare and media persecution. Social and workers' movements as well as political leaders have ratified their support to the Vice President. In El Salvador, indigenous peoples and social organizations gathered in front of the Human Rights Ombudsman's office to request protection measures for defenders of the Sensunapan River. Unicef warns that children in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel are in need of urgent support as they face severe malnutrition and the risk of waterborne diseases. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Vice President of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez denounced that the Vialidad trial is not against her but against Peronism, the national and popular governments that fight for truth and justice to create a change. After the court's refusal to grant her the possibility to extend her interrogation, Fernandez exercised her right to defense, using the YouTube platform to express her opinion on the case known as Vialidad. The former president also questioned the political and media campaign mounted around the trial and assured that the trial began as a fiction with a false script, since nothing of what the prosecutor said was proven. On the contrary, everything contrary to what was said was proven with the testimonies of more than 100 witnesses summoned by the prosecution. Also questioned that the links of Macrista businessmen with corruption in public works were not investigated. The Vice President of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez, assured that the causes for which she is being prosecuted are the social policies implemented during her government and the government of Néstor Kirchner.
Why the prosecutor is asking for 12 years. They are 12 years, the 12 years of the best government that Argentina had in the last decades, that of Néstor Kirchner and my 2 mandates, and I say with numbers. Why are they asking us for 12 years? One for the memory, another for the truth, another for the justice, another for the fund, another for the AFJP, another for the YPF and the cow, another for the non-indebtedness, another for the wages of the workers. When I left, the workers took 51.8% of the GDP, and the rest was for the businessmen. Now, let alone the way we are. That is why they're going to stigmatize me. That is why they are going to condemn me.
Mexican media workers in the city of Acapulco mobilized against the murder of journalist Freddy Roman last Monday. With shouts of "not to silence" and signs that read "enough impunity and justice," the demonstrators repudiated the crime and demanded justice for all the murdered colleagues. The communicators are also demanded respect for the right to inform and to be informed. Freddy Roman, editor of the newspaper La Realidad, was murdered by unknown armed in Chilpancingo in the state of Guerrero. With Roman's death, 15 journalists have been murdered in Mexico so far this year. The Uruguayan Health Federation stages a partial general strike to demand better working conditions and a larger budget for the sector. The federation informed in a press release that the strike, accompanied by a demonstration at the obelisk in the city of Montevideo toward the Ministry of Labor, is aimed at demanding the national executive to increase the number of health personnel and to present to the authorities a list of demands from the union. In Colombia, the police put an end to the forced eradication of illicit crops, which mostly affected coca farmers as they were not included in crop substitution plans. The new director of the police of Colombia, General Henry Sanabria, said that there will be no more officers arriving to the places where there are hectares of coca to uproot them without the consent of their owners. The officials stated that they are applying voluntary eradication in certain places where they have held meetings with some members of institutions and farmers. He also assured that they do not intend to stop with the suspension of forced eradication and that the government has a proposal ready to comply with the Constitution and the law. In El Salvador, indigenous peoples and social organizations gathered in front of the Human Rights Ombudsman's office to request protection measures for defenders of the Sensunapan River. The demonstrators rejected the installation of an 8th hydroelectric dam, stating that the project would damage at least 14 sacred communities. In this context, the environmental organizations and indigenous peoples demand from the authorities permanent protection measures for the ancestral territories, while assuring that they will fight for the well-being of their territories in a comprehensive manner. In Haiti, at least one person was killed during demonstrations by social and political organizations against insecurity, fuel shortages, and the high cost of living. Authorities report that the victim died during an attack by an armed group that fired numerous shots as the demonstrators passed by. Besides demonstrations in the capital, thousands of people have protested in other cities of Haiti, such as Decades and Cabaret, to denounce the government's inaction. Haiti is facing a social, political, and economic crisis marked by inflation, depreciation of the local currency, high cost of living, fuel shortages, and increasing armed attacks by groups fighting over territory control.
Today we live in a society where people cannot eat nor drink. Being young, we understand the social problems. If the conditions of the most vulnerable people are not changed, we still will stay on the streets. We will bring a new vision to see if the young people can breathe.
I'm going to take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the south. Ukrainian artillery on Tuesday targeted the administrative buildings of the Donetsk People's Republic in the center of the city, presumably to kill the head of government. 3 dead and 6 wounded is the preliminary balance. Our special correspondent, Alejandro Kirk, is at the scene with the details.
Mid-morning missile rain on Tuesday in the center of Donetsk.
Once again and massively, the Ukrainian forces attack downtown Donetsk. For the first time since we are here, since March, the building of the head of government on my right and the Central Hotel where many journalists stay have been attacked. This is a clear message from the Ukrainian forces about what they can do.
There are no military installations in the neighborhood.
Bullets were flying around here. Well, it's a little scary, guys. It's a little scary. It's been a long time since there's been a strike here downtown.
Just 2 blocks west, the local government building.
This is another line crossed by the Ukrainian criminal regime. They are using terrorist methods. They are destroying civilians. They are shelling the city center. NATO 155 caliber shells are being used. In fact, the West is now involved in specific destruction of civilian structures in the city of Donetsk. That is what prevails today. In general, I believe that the Ukrainian criminal regime must suffer the punishment it deserves.
This driver had stopped at the red light near the police building. His companion wanders around in despair with a dead puppy in his arms.
I sat in the back with her. Ruslan's wife was sitting in the back. When she arrived, she shouts that it's the only thing she has left. And about my friend from my good friend's beer, we were going to do business. He was going to the Kirov district. We were going to do business, and there you have it.
Another 155mm shell landed near the most important bridge in town, which is known as Stalin Bridge. Another person was killed here. And nearby, in a residential area, 2 more shells. Street is called 25th anniversary of the Army of Workers and Peasants.
There were 2 civilians injured who were subsequently treated by the forces themselves. Yes, the public services are eliminating the aftermath of this with their own forces. An ambulance arrived quickly. The Commission of Inquiry arrived, so everything was done at a high level.
Alejandro Kirk, teleSUR, Donetsk.
On Tuesday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed the head of Palestinian state Mahmoud Abbas at the presidential palace in Ankara. The president of the Palestinian authorities, during his 3-day official visit, will hold talks with the Turkish president to strengthen Palestinian-Turkish relations. Both leaders will also seek solutions to the latest political developments in the Palestinian territory and other international issues. This rapprochement came at the request of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, following Ankara's announcement on August 17th to strengthen diplomatic relations with Palestine.
Palestine always has an exceptional place in the hearts of our country and our people. As always, we are continuing our solidarity with the Palestinian people and our support for the Palestinian cause in the strongest manner. Turkey, which has recognized the Palestinian state since the moment it was declared, defends the two-state solution vision on every platform.
Monkeypox has reached all 50 states in the United States after Wyoming became the last one to confirm the existence of the disease. The Wyoming Department of Health announced the first monkeypox case in a local resident in Laramie County. Updated data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed that more than 15,000 confirmed monkeypox cases had been reported nationwide. New York had the most cases with nearly 3,000, followed by California with 2,663 and Florida with 1,588. Some public health experts said that the actual total number of cases may be higher than the official data due to the delays on collection of data and lack of testing and vaccination. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced an independent inquiry into his predecessor Scott Morrison secretly appointing himself to multiple ministries during the COVID-19 pandemic. Albanese made public the move on Tuesday after Solicitor General Stephen Donaghy concluded that while Morrison's appointments were legal, they constituted an unprecedented assumption of power and fundamentally undermined responsible government. During the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, the former Prime Minister secretly took over the charge of 5 ministries, including Health, Finance, Treasury, and Home Affairs, Industry, Science and Resources, despite there were officials appointed to those ministries.
The implications are still being.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund warned that children in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel could die in devastating numbers unless urgent support is provided as severe malnutrition and the risk of waterborne disease collides. The number of people in Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia without reliable access to safe water has risen from 9.5 million to 16.2 million in 5 months, putting children and their families in increased danger of contracting illnesses like cholera and diarrhea. Meanwhile, children in the Sahel are also facing extremely high levels of water vulnerability. According to the latest data from the World Health Organization, already more children die because of unsafe water and sanitation in the region than in any other parts of the world. Most people in the Horn of Africa rely on water delivered by vendors on trucks or donkey carts. The Syrian army drove out a convoy of U.S. occupation forces in Hasakeh province. A checkpoint of the Syrian forces repelled a U.S. convoy of 6 military vehicles accompanied by opposition militia of the Syrian Democratic Forces, which sought to overrun the village of Al-Salahiyah. Social movements in the region pointed out that the government army forced the convoy to turn back. The Syrian Ministry of Defense highlighted the maneuver that seeks to stop the actions of Washington and its Western allies who promote the plundering of natural resources. The European Union has denounced Israel's repressive measures against Palestinian human rights organizations and called on Tel Aviv regime to clarify alleged terrorism accusations. European Union's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, says such claims are unacceptable and that the EU stands firm alongside Palestinian civil organizations to defend the right of expression and association in the occupied territories. Borrell said Tel Aviv must put forward convincing proof of its accusations or else the EU will act accordingly. Borrell also emphasized that Israel must not use the anti-terrorism law to undermine civil society. Part of the remaining grain silos at the Beirut port collapsed amid non-extinguished fires in Lebanon. It was the third collapse in a row since July at the silos, which are in the vicinity of one damaged by the devastating explosion at the Beirut port on August 4, 2020. The blast costed 200 lives, injured over 6,000 people, and left hundreds of thousands without their homes and properties. Since July, sporadic fires occur in the northern side of the silos due to the burning of remaining grains caused by the high temperatures in the summer. The first collapse happened on July 31st, followed by a further collapse of the structure on August 4th. The Lebanese government is considering a demolition of the northern facade of the silos while keeping and reinforcing the southern side. People from the Sudanese village of Makailab recovered their belongings after floods caused by torrential rains that killed at least 52 people and damaged or destroyed thousands of homes. In the North African country, heavy rains usually fall between May and October, and the country faces severe flooding every year, wrecking property, infrastructure, and crops. According to official figures, in 2022, floods have killed at least 79 people and left thousands homeless. Recently, the government declared a state of emergency due to floods in 6 states, including River Nile. The crisis came as Sudan reels from deepening political unrest and a spiraling economic crisis exacerbated by the military coup in 2021.
Autumn has just started, and people are worried that there will be more rains, and there is no place to stay. Not all families have tents, and we are worried for the children's safety, as there are scorpions and snakes. People are really worried about what the heavy rain could bring with it.
Parts of the world are moving abruptly from drought to torrential rains in a summer of extreme weather, likely increased by human-caused climate change. In the United States, the St. Louis area and 88% of Kentucky early in July were considered abnormally dry, and then the skies opened up and deadly flooding devastated communities. China's Yangtze River is drying up a year after torrential rains. The country is suffering under a record-long heat wave already into its third month, while sudden downpour killed more than a dozen people in July. In the Horn of Africa, in the midst of a devastating famine and drought, nearby flash floods add to the humanitarian disaster unfolding. Europe, which suffered through unprecedented flooding last year, has spiked with record heat that is drying up rivers and threatening power supplies. teleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in all the faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief, where you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.